Welcome to the Younger Members Committee Career Information Session number 1, when Jennifer O'Sullivan speaks with Flor McCarthy on the essential marketing skills for young lawyers.
So I'm absolutely delighted to introduce everybody to Solicitor Flor McCarthy, McCarthy & Co Solicitors in Clonakilty, and we are going to be going down the the route of marketing for solicitors, which is something kind of new to a lot of us, especially when you consider that it's not something we learn in Blackhall. We get business development, but I suppose if you own your own practice, it's a completely different ballgame. So we're going to get some practical tips and learn a lot. And so sit back, relax, and enjoy. So Flor, you might kick us off with a little bit about your own background and how you got into this area specifically.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you everybody who's here this evening. It's really such a pleasure to speak to such a great community of younger colleagues, and I'm feeling my age here now very much in this company, and very, see some very familiar friendly names there, and great to have you all on the call, guys. Please do jump in on the chat there and let us know where you're coming from and what your thoughts are in this whole area. Have you any kind of, is marketing something that you do in your, or have you any exposure to it already? I'd be very interested to know anybody who's had any kind of practical exposure to that, or it's something that their firm has involved them in any way. So just that'd be very interesting to know what kind of mix of experience or background we've got here in the room. But thank you, Jennifer, so much for that kind introduction. And the question is, how did I get into this? Well, I guess, well, okay, there's the legal stuff, and of course that's kind of a genetic disorder in my family. My father's a solicitor, my mother's a solicitor, two of my brothers are solicitors, and one is a barrister, so he's the kind of genetic aberration. So you know, that's how I got into law, and ended up doing this kind of just, you know, I never had a great kind of passion to be a lawyer when I was growing up or anything like that, but I just kind of drifted into it because of the family association. And then I came in here to in McCarthy & Co. It's actually my mother set up the practice. She set it up as her own business back in the mid 80s, and it was a tiny practice when I came down here from I did my apprenticeship, that we called it back then, in P.F. O'Reilly's in Suckley, Georgia Street, and I came down here in 2000, and my salary in Dublin at the time was greater than the turnover of the business, and they didn't pay you much back then compared to what they do now. And so we just kind of, you know, we worked away together, myself and my mum, and then my brother John joined me about 4 years later, and it was just very ordinary, typical, you know, country practice. You know, we did everything from a needle to an anchor. We did whatever came in the door. It was, the whole philosophy was just look after the clients, and they'll tell others, and they'll come back to you, and that's how you grow your business. And we never did any marketing. We never did any kind of focus on business development or anything like that. And the business grew and grew and grew, and we were experiencing, you know, double-digit growth year on year. And this is in the 2000s, and I thought this was, I was a commercial genius, and that I was making it all happen. And of course, it turned out in about 2008 that it wasn't me. It was not the kind of commercial acumen that I had been deploying in growing the business. It was the Celtic Tiger bubble that burst, and that kind of phenomenon, I guess, was what forced me to suddenly kind of say, well, we got to reinvent our business, and we had to go and then totally look at where were we going to get new work from. It wasn't sustainable here in the small population that we had here in Clonakilty to grow the kind of areas that we felt would be the high value areas of business. And so we had to look at going online and look at different specializations, and we would kind of transform the business in that way. So we chose personal injury, medical negligence as our main areas of specialization. That wasn't a market that was big enough here to sustain and grow a practice, and so we looked at going online with that. So that was, I suppose, it was necessity that drove that, and it was a crisis, and I suppose everything that we had been doing before then had been property based. It was you know, it was the conveyancing transactions themselves and all the property per transaction, but then there was disputes around property. Probate was based on property values. If you had family law disputes, that the property was ultimately what was funding and paying for the whole transaction, and and that all just disappeared overnight when the crash came. And so we then started to say, right, okay, what are we going to reposition ourselves to? And I suppose that the big shift, paradigm shift in my thinking, I think, was moving from, a general practice, I can do anything from a needle to an anchor, to we focus exclusively we are going to be extremely good and extremely, committed to a particular area of specialism, and then going for that, at the highest possible level that we can. And that's a really difficult and counterintuitive move to make, to say no to other types of business. And but doing that has been, that is the transformation. That's the biggest single thing that I think I would say to anybody. And I think it's an area that the Irish solicitor kind of community in general has been very, very resistant to, and is very reluctant to do it. And most try and hold on to a kind of I know maybe a lot of colleagues here will come from maybe large firm commercial backgrounds, I'm not sure, but certainly in the smaller firm universe that I kind of tend to exist in, there is a tendency to want to be to retain the general kind of practice, because it's felt like it's by excluding stuff you're kind of limiting your options, or you're saying no to work. But it's the other way around completely, and it's that first thing, I think, in terms of marketing for a younger colleague, I think is really about understanding what is the value proposition that you bring to the marketplace, and how can you maximize that value proposition is the way that I would think about it, at that stage in your career. Because ultimately, somebody who's out there who's got a problem is looking for the best possible solution to their problem. They're not looking for somebody who can do, a million and one things. They're looking for, and so therefore if you're not dealing with the problem that they want to get solved, they're not even going to see you. But once you are, and you completely kind of answer, and they say, okay, well, that person is exactly who I need, then, that's what your marketing needs to effectively do. And you can only do that, I think, in what we do by really focusing and specializing, and that means limiting things that you could do, but that means then that you become much more accomplished, much more expert. It decreases risk. I think dabbling in multiple areas, it's good when we're starting off in our careers, I think, to get a breadth of experience and get a taste for things. But I think quite quickly, unless you're doing stuff regularly, it comes with risk. It takes an awful lot more work to do that, because you're obviously you're learning and having to kind of, if you like, reinvent the wheel over and over again. So that's the first kind of principle, I think, that and it would be the defining principle in terms of how we transformed our business here, is we chose to be very ruthlessly specialized.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I picked up a lot there from just so I understand. So basically, you thought what you thought was tremendous growth was actually an external factor, and then came the crisis, and of course in crisis you react, but you reacted in such a way that you were able to specialize, because that would bring more value. And there's discipline in having an essential service, because you're going to have to turn down some business initially, but then you become well practiced in that area.
Well, you see, I think, it's one of the great kind of, it's a pity, I think, because there was a proposal in the Irish profession a number of years ago where they wanted to bring in a kind of specialist certification.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And that was something that just didn't really get traction.
Didn't take off.
The profession just didn't want it, I think, or at least certainly the Council of the Law Society didn't approve it. And I think that was a mistake, because I think as we evolve as a profession, that is a more evolved way of doing business. And that means that, for instance, like if you move into a more specialized kind of niche area, well then, like for instance, I don't do any family law, I don't do any employment law, I don't do any. Now, what I want are colleagues who I can refer out any employment queries that we have. So what I would love to be is literally sending work to somebody who I know, and all I want to know is that they're going to take care of the client that I send to them, that I know they're going to be responsive, that I know the client is not going to be kind of, if you like, let down or just not gotten back to, or whatever the case may be. So I'll say, okay, I don't do that, but I know Jennifer O'Sullivan does that. Jennifer's, and I'm going to make a connection. And then once I know that you say, okay, I got it, Flora, and I'm gonna just let that person know that I'm going to be in touch with them, whatever the case may be. No, it mightn't work out. The case mightn't be any good, or you might do it, or whatever the case may be. But it's just about making sure that other person can get an initial kind of conversation and find out, are you able to help them or not? And that's something that I think, it's liberating for the entire profession, once we do that. I mean, we don't exclusively specialize in personal injury medical language. We do a little bit of private client work in conveyancing and probate for our existing local client base and for our litigation clients who will need that work done as well. And we have a couple of good teams who can do that work very well. But those are our two little kind of sweet spots that we focus on.
Core areas, yeah.
And then, I mean, I used to do quite a lot of kind of medium-sized kind of handy commercial kind of work around here, and I had a good name for that, and I was able to handle it quite well, and I could, but they would always want me to do it because they want the kind of boss doing it. And if there's a negotiation, they want who they feel is that they kind of is their guy doing that. And and as you know, with different kind of commercial transactions, there's so much different things to it. If you're dealing with larger firms, they've got teams, and they've got somebody who's doing the GDPR who's coming in here, and there's somebody else who's over here who's got this stuff, and you're here as a kind of a one guy trying to get across all this stuff, and maybe you're not doing it every day, and that just becomes extremely draining and extremely risky as well. So that, I think, in terms of that early stage in our career, where maybe you're not being tasked with the business development kind of piece in your firm right now, but I think it's creating maximum value in your kind of in what you bring to the marketplace. I think that's the first thing that I would focus on, as from my experience, having done it exactly the other way. I literally said, all I'm going to do is I'm not going to be I was trying to be do everything. And again, that was an uncomfortable thing to do here in Clonakilty, to move from a GP to a specialist practice, because it's a small town. But of course, we've had the internet, and that, I mean, when I remember first going to I went to John Schutte was actually one of the first solicitors who was into advertising. John Schutte he was on the Late Late Show years ago. He used to advertise. He was I mean, he was a great guy. But John did a course in marketing for solicitors back in the mid 2000s. And I remember him talking there in his office in Dublin, and he was saying that he had at the time, and he would have gone back to maybe the late 80s and 90s, and he had said that nobody will travel for legal services. That it just, they won't go beyond a certain radius to get a solicitor. And that was kind of considered a canon of faith. And we discovered just, here over the last 10 years that just simply isn't the case. And our business is now practically nationwide. And it was long before COVID happened that was the case. We were dealing with everybody all across the country via the internet. And of course, everybody's kind of gotten comfortable. They had gotten comfortable with that already, because everybody's dealing with Amazon. Everybody was dealing with getting their stuff online anyway. And then of course COVID hit, and suddenly overnight it all just exploded. Everybody's people are working from all over the country, and people are doing their business with other people differently all over the country. I mean, we chose to make that, long before COVID struck, we chose to make that a benefit in our business. And we would say to people, well, why have to travel across town, get somebody to mind the kids, get some time off work, have to get dressed up to go into an office to have a meeting with somebody and pay them, X hundred euro per hour? Why not do that over the phone, do that over Zoom, do that at your convenience, do it, at a time that suits you? And people suddenly realized that not having to show up at the solicitor's office was actually much more convenient and less troublesome for them than the contrary. So I think sometimes the way that we think about the business delivery system kind of model, as this is the way we've always done it, and therefore this is the way we have to do it. Like if I have to have a new client come out, on board, I've got to meet them face to face in the boardroom downstairs.
Yeah.
And of course we found out with COVID that everybody found out that wasn't necessary. And so I think thinking laterally about how we do things with a view to improving the client experience is something that solicitors don't tend to do. And I think solicitors who do that and think about that carefully will have a huge advantage.
Yeah, they think about the end-to-end process. So yeah, COVID was a catalyst, as was the recession for your business. And you've already said then that like the place of your product has now moved a lot online, which allows you to increase your reach. So think of the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, promotion, place. I suppose what we all want to know is, so if I go to Sweeney & Co Solicitors, I went on your Facebook page actually today, and obviously your core business stood out to me. And there was one word I honed in on, which was the word friendly. You actually don't see that a lot with solicitors firms. They wouldn't claim to be friendly, but you're obviously leaning into that. So will you just talk me through the language of promotion and why you've chosen, well, it doesn't specifically need to be your firm, but how that impacts the type of customer who's going to come to you?
Okay, thank you, Jennifer, for a really, really good question, and for taking that time to just take a little bit of just to observe how we were doing things. And I'm not saying that we have any kind of perfect way of doing it or any magic kind of solutions, but the only thing that we've tried to do is try to just be authentically ourselves and portray that in what we do. So I said to you, my mom set up the business in 1987. And she was a real just tiny one-woman show here for years. And then I came down here, and my brother John is with us. My brother Joseph is with it. My wife Mags works is their financial controller. And so we said, we're a family business. Okay, we're a family firm. That's what we do it. And I say to all the team when I'm recruiting new staff members here, I say, look, we take what we do really, really seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously. And we like to have a bit of fun here in the office. We like to make sure everybody's, we got to get the work done, but it's about, and most importantly, everybody in the office knows that their relationship with everybody who contacts the office is just as important as the solicitor's relationship with them. So it's not like they're just talking to an anonymous face, behind the desk whenever they're coming in. Each person in the office realizes that it's that the customer journey and the customer experience they're having is down to their interaction with everybody here in the firm. So we really make the whole team, get them on board with that idea of being part of the relationship and the experience the client has. And as you say, that isn't something that solicitors take very seriously, as treat as important. I mean, because we tend as a profession to be a little bit kind of entitled and think that we're very, serious experts dealing with very serious, heavy and important topics. And of course we are. I mean, of course, and here in medical negligence, personal injury business, we deal with some of the most awful and traumatic things you can possibly imagine. But the client is kind of assuming that we've gotten that taken care of, I mean, like if I'm going in for surgery, I don't really care what they're going to do when they put me under or when they cut out open, or I'm assuming all of that. I'm assuming is going to be taken care of to the highest medical standards it possibly can by extraordinarily skilled and experienced experts, right? But what really is going to make a difference for me is the experience that I have from the people who I engage with from the moment that I come into that environment, and how comfortable am I made to feel, how relaxed am I made to feel, are they communicating with me in plain English about how, and that's not maybe happening all the time, but so that kind of just saying, look, okay, we're going to take care of the legal stuff, and we've got that. And okay, so we've got to understand where you're coming from. We've got to make sure that you understand what we're doing, and we do that and not to be patronizing or treat people as if they're stupid, but just to speak to them in the language that they understand, and make sure that they understand that's taken care of. But then think about the relationships that kind of sit all around all of that, and we can be dealing with very serious stuff, and we can still smile, and we can still have a friendly atmosphere. And I think that's something as a profession we could do more of.
Yeah, it just reminds me of Steve Jobs, like when he said that product is everything. When you come to Apple, you assume a certain standard, and it's interesting to me that you looked out like you use the analogy there of the medical profession, and I think that's very wise, because we can only really learn how to improve our own product if we look how other industries are offering a similar type product, as in from a professional.
Well, I'll tell you something else, okay, how I think about this. And I talk to
Yeah.
the team about this all the time, and this is what I say, is that we are not in competition with the other solicitors, okay? We are in competition with all of the other service experiences that our clients have in their daily lives, okay? So they're going to their daily lives and they're saying, I go in here and I'm going in here for a hair appointment, or I don't go for hair appointment, funnily enough, but maybe you may do, or we go for whatever experience we need to go. We need to get the car serviced. We need to go and maybe go and do whatever it is we need to do. Go and get a cup of coffee. And then I go in here and here's how I feel when I come out. I go in here and here's how I feel when I come out, right? And if I go into the solicitors and I compare that experience with going into the hairdressers and here's how I feel when I come out, well, does one make me feel good or bad? And does one, so you're saying, I really don't like going there. I don't like the way I feel when I deal with those people. And whereas I go here, I always feel great when I come out of here. And so that's what you're in competition with in terms of the client experience. That you're dealing with. And it makes a difference, and it's much more enjoyable to work in that way. And clients, and we also then really have embraced the idea of asking our clients to tell us how we're doing and give us feedback, and we ask them to do that then via the Trustpilot is something we've been using now on the website for quite some time. And I just get blown away with the feedback that we get from clients after their experience with us. And that then again, it provides a positive feedback loop, because, you know, people who come, they're not trying two solicitors at the same time and seeing which one is better, right?
Yes,
and there may
yes,
be,
yes.
You know, they're maybe not going to be dealing with a solicitor for, it might be 6-7 years before they may have never
change. Yeah,
so maybe the transaction is buying or selling a house. Maybe there's it's not something you do every day of the week. Please God, you don't have accidents on a regular basis. You don't have traumatic kind of, disputes in your family life or employment life, or whatever the case may be. And so it's not something that you're going to have, repeat experience with various different examples of that. So I suppose giving people the kind of social proof and trust from others who can say, okay, I can see what that there's other people like me have been through this experience, and we're used to reviews now and everything that we're doing. That's the first thing we'll go and look and see what is the other feedback from users.
Okay, so yeah, I picked up on two things there. So basically, you're talking about the experience, so the feelings and emotion of actually using the product, and then the other one was the social proof through the reviews and the Trustpilot and the inherent need for certainty. And so those are the two things I picked up on. So obviously with the emotional part, like this is again why I think we struggle, because we fail to understand that marketing is psychology, and we're selling a service that a lot of the time has something to do with somebody's personal affairs. So you're probably trying to marry the expertise, but also with the empathy. And then you have to layer the social proof on top of that. And that seems to be what you're saying is a good formula, and certainly has worked for you. And then in terms of, so I want to ask you some nitty-gritty questions myself,
sure.
Which would be quite interested. I'm sure that people would like to know. So in terms of social media, we have seen the rise of law firms advertising through Facebook. LinkedIn seems to be a big one. And I suppose trying to catch people at the Google search part must be a very big part of your marketing strategy. If you could just give us some indication of what your initial plan was around online marketing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge question, and I see questions on that, and in the chat, I see people asking about budget and things like that. And it's really impossible to say anything, meaningful around budget just in the kind of time that we have here for the conversation, because like really you don't need, I don't think about budget. I think about ROI. It's about return on investment. What am I going to get in terms of the, and for what we do in terms of the marketing that we do, I am utterly a proponent of what's called direct response marketing. So I'm not looking for kind of just, get the word out there and put banner up ads up and hope that people are going to click and show up on my website. I'm looking to provide people with, specific things that they can raise their hands and say. For instance, one of the big things that we do on our website, if you look at it, it's the guides that we provide people with, so that they can come and say, okay, I'm interested in a personal injury matter. We have guides that will help them at various different aspects of what, for various different personal injury cases or different points in the journey they may be at. They can download the guide, they can get that information without having to speak to anybody, and that then puts them on a path with us in terms of follow-up. We will have a system of keeping in touch, and we will also then, perhaps prompt them then to say, look, they've read something about us, they've seen a little bit more about the information and how we can take care of things for them, and that will then give them the confidence maybe to reach out and get in touch with us. So I think it's about providing people with, first of all, if you're online, somebody is searching online, yes, and of course the dark art of SEO is something that, I certainly don't have the expertise to be able to explain to people. We do use external providers in relation to SEO, and there are good and bad ones and reputable and disreputable ones out there. And unfortunately, they don't have any law society type organization that they've got to be a member of. But what is critical in terms of any marketing proposition is the offer. And if you're online and it's a question of, if somebody is looking, are you providing them with an offer that is essentially, an offer that makes complete and utter sense to them, that they can't refuse. So that would be something that what we have done traditionally over the years is providing information, guides and downloads that basically are, it's free information that enables people to find out more, because they're researching their cases, they're researching what's happened to them, they haven't experienced it before, and very often, if you can provide them with those answers up front in a non-threatening and helpful way, that will very often start them on a journey that will lead, and then of course you can provide them with information on that journey, and you can provide updates that this is something that you can scale. So that is certainly a model that we have used very, very successfully over the years. Online and digital is constantly changing. I'm not a huge fan of social media, I'll have to be honest. We do have a presence there, but I think there's an awful lot of social media can be very, the ROI in social media can be disappointing. Now, you mentioned people advertising on social media and social media marketing. That's a different kind of proposition, but you need to be quite expert in it, and it wouldn't be where I would start. Let me put it like that.
Okay, so yeah, you're just, to you, word of mouth is more important to you anyway because it reflects.
No, not necessarily word of mouth, but just, very few, unless you're paying on social media, very few people are seeing what you're posting. Do you know what I mean? The reason Mark Zuckerberg's a billionaire is because you got to pay
advertising. Yeah.
So Google has always been our primary kind of and SEO, and of course you've got paid search as well, which again can works very, very well if you use it judiciously.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I suppose the other thing I picked up on as well in terms of providing free information is, the law of reciprocity. So I think that
you hit the nail on the head, Jennifer. Law of reciprocity and giving people, in order for them to first of all to help them, and it also then gives them confidence in you and starts the relationship. Because let's face it, sometimes as a profession we don't have the greatest reputation in the world in terms of being that kind of, let's say, helpful and generous. I know we are, but external people don't often think of us in that way.
No, you're right. You're dead right. No, but I certainly learned an awful lot from you tonight. We're coming up to past. So I've written down everything you've said. So hopefully I'll be able to apply some of it myself in my own life. And it really is fascinating to hear from somebody who has, made it work for them. And like as you say, it depends on what type of firm you are, and it depends where you place yourself. I think ultimately it depends how well you know your customer and how you want them to experience the service you're offering. So yeah.
Completely. I mean, ultimately, I mean, it's about, I mean, I'm always saying you've no business marketing anything that you're not in the business of being excellent at in the first place. So the gold standard, the starting point is being really, really good at what we do. And then I say, if I think that I can do a really good job for somebody out there in what I'm particularly specialized at, and I know that if they go somewhere else, so maybe for somebody, and I know there are other people who aren't caring as much as I am about what I'm doing, I know they're going to get a suboptimal experience, well, then I believe it's my duty to put me in front so that when those people are looking, they're going to have the best opportunity of finding me or somebody else like me who can take care of them as well as I believe we can. Right? So that's a duty that I think we have. But somebody mentions there about, in the same way looking who are our competitors, we're also not really trying to get repeat customers in the way other businesses might. Is it more about recommendations from the customers we've had? Absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest things, and this is really old school and old fashioned, and it's going to sound, you're going to go, why do you talk about paper? But our print newsletter that we send out to our customer base, maybe 4 times a year, it's one of our secret bullets that I mean, I've been telling Betty, if you want to read my book, The Solicitor's Guide to Marketing, I've been saying this since, I don't know, 20, whenever that hell it was now, it's a long time ago when I wrote it. I said that the secret weapon is a print newsletter, and nobody does them. But those are a wonderful way of connecting with your existing customers, existing clients, and cross-selling your other services that you provide, and also explaining to your customers how you really would value their referrals. And if they know friends who are colleagues or family members who encounter the situation that you deal with, that you would really appreciate it if they would refer them to you. Now, just simply explaining that to people and saying that to people on a repeated basis is powerful, because people, you know, they don't think that they may have somebody who does whatever it is that you do, Jennifer, in your business, and they may just say, they just don't think that you're actually interested. And you maybe it's not appropriate for them to mention your name to them, or whatever the case may be. If that's something you're doing on a regular basis, then you know, your clients will you know, they'll. But you need to ask.
Yeah. Ask and you will receive. Okay,
exactly.
well, I think that's perfect, and thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us. So this will be available on YouTube later. So
well, thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Jennifer, for having me, and thank you, Keith, for facilitating and organizing it. And it's been a real pleasure. And have a great evening, everybody.